Hi again. So this is the video for the actual Webquest. So I'm going to read through the directions. I will read the articles to you and I will read the questions. Okay, so the directions are we are going to be starting to read Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. There is a lot unknown about William, but there is plenty of information that historians have managed to uncover. Follow the steps below to answer the questions. You may click through to the links, open up the PDF with the corresponding article on Classroom, or if you're doing this as a packet, turn to the correct article, okay? So if you're watching the video, for the most part, you should just be following along with me. Okay, so we're going to start here with Shakespeare's life. So you're going to go to this website, you're going to click on it, and then you'll click on the link that pops up below, and it'll take you right to this website. So this is Shakespeare's, sorry, this is Shakespeare's biography. So this is going to tell us a lot about Shakespeare the person. So our first question is, where was Shakespeare born? Our next question is, who did Shakespeare marry and what was their difference in age? So I'm going to read the first couple of things and then we should get the information from that. For all his fame and celebration, William Shakespeare remains a mysterious figure with regards to personal history. There are just two primary sources for information on the bard: his works and various legal and church documents that have survived from Elizabethan times. Naturally, there are many gaps in this body of information, which tells us little about Shakespeare the man. William Shakespeare was born in Stratford-upon-Avon, allegedly on April 23, 1564. Church records from Holy Trinity Church indicate that he was baptized there on April 26, 1564. Young William was born of John Shakespeare, a glover and leather merchant, and Mary Arden, a landed local heiress. William, according to the church register, was the third of 8 children in the Shakespeare household, 3 of whom died in childhood. John Shakespeare had a remarkable run of success as a merchant, alderman, and high bailiff of Stratford during William's early childhood. His fortunes declined, however, in the late 1570s, so they kind of grew up wealthy. There is great conjecture about Shakespeare's childhood years, especially regarding his education. Scholars surmise that Shakespeare attended the grammar school in Stratford. While there are no records extant to prove this claim, Shakespeare's knowledge of Latin and classical Greek would tend to support this theory. In addition, Shakespeare's first biographer, Nicholas Rowe, wrote that John Shakespeare had placed William for some time in a free school. John Shakespeare, as a Stratford official, would have been granted a waiver of tuition for his son. As the records do not exist, we do not know how long William may have attended the school, but the literary quality of his works suggests a solid educational foundation. What is certain is that William Shakespeare never proceeded to university schooling, which has contributed to the debate about the authorship of his works. The next documented event in Shakespeare's life is his marriage to Anne Hathaway on November 28, 1582. William was 18 at the time, and Anne was 26 and pregnant. Their first daughter, Susanna, was born on May 26, 1583. The couple later had twins, Hamnet and Judith, born February 2, 1585, and christened at Holy Trinity. Hamnet died in childhood at the age of 11 on August 11, 1596. Just kind of a side note, something to keep in mind is children often died at a young age or at infancy. It didn't lessen the effect of the child dying. Like, if your kid dies, you're still going to feel very upset, and a lot of people were unable to recover from that. But that's why, like, Shakespeare was born to a family of 8. You would have a big family because there was always the possibility that your children could die young. So I think Shakespeare lived to be like 50s, 60s, which is pretty good. Okay, so you should have your first 2 completed. Where was he born? I think it's where and when. No, where. So where is going to be in this paragraph. And who did Shakespeare marry and what was their difference in age, which is going to be in this paragraph. Okay, pause the video if you need to write that down. Number 3 is, what day did he supposedly die? What did he leave? And number 4 is, what did he leave his wife in his will? And what did Shakespeare's gravestone say? So, what day did he die? What did he leave his wife in his will? And what did Shakespeare's gravestone say? Okay. For the 7 years following the birth of his twins, William Shakespeare disappears from all records, finally turning up again in London sometime in 1592. This period, known as the Lost Years, has sparked as much controversy about Shakespeare's life as any period. Rowe notes that young Shakespeare was quite fond of poaching and may have had to flee Stratford after an incident with Sir Thomas Lucy, whose deer and rabbits he allegedly poached. There is also a rumor of Shakespeare working as an assistant schoolmaster in Lancashire for a time, though this is circumstantial at best. It is estimated that Shakespeare arrived in London around 1588 and began to establish himself as an actor and playwright. Evidently, Shakespeare garnered some envy early on, as related by the critical attack of Robert Greene, a London playwright, in 1592. An upstart crow, beautified with our feathers, that with this tiger's heart wrapped in a player's hide supposes he is as well able to bombast out a blank verse as the best of you, and being an absolute Johannes factotum, is in his own conceit the only shake scene in a country. So he got hate. And when you get hate, that normally means you're doing a pretty good job of whatever it is you're doing. Unless you're actually doing something awful, then you're just getting well-deserved hate. But in this case, it's because he's a good actor and he's a good playwright, and so he's getting hate for being a good playwright. Greene's bombast notwithstanding, Shakespeare must have shown considerable promise. By 1594, he was not only acting and writing for the Lord Chamberlain's men, called the King's Men after the accession of James I in 1603, but was a managing partner in the operation as well. With Will Kemp, a master comedian, and Richard Burbage, a leading tragic actor of the day, the Lord Chamberlain's Men became a favorite London troupe, patronized by royalty and made popular by the theater-going public. So they kicked butt. They really did a good job with what they were doing. And they got backed by some rich, famous people. Some good stuff. Shakespeare's accomplishments are apparent when he studied against other playwrights of his age. His company was the most successful in London in his day. He had plays published and sold in octavo editions or penny copies to the more literate of his audiences. Never before had a playwright enjoyed sufficient acclaim to see his works published and sold as popular literature in the midst of his career. In addition, Shakespeare's ownership share in both the theatrical company and the Globe itself made him as much an entrepreneur as an artist. While Shakespeare might not be accounted wealthy by London standards, his success allowed him to purchase new house and retire in comfort to Stratford in 1611. William Shakespeare wrote his will in 1611. Bequeathing his properties to his daughter Susanna, married in 1607 to Dr. John Hall. To his surviving daughter Judith, he left £300, and to his wife Anne left, quote, "my second best bed." William Shakespeare was interred at Holy Trinity in Stratford on William Shakespeare allegedly died on his birthday, April 23rd, 1616. This is probably more of a romantic myth than reality, but Shakespeare was interred at Holy Trinity in Stratford on April 25th. In 1623, two working companions of Shakespeare from the Lord Chamberlain's Men, John Hemmings and Henry Condell, printed the first folio edition of his collected plays, of which half were previously published. Ugh. William Shakespeare's legacy is a body of work that will never again be equaled in Western civilization. His words have endured for 400 years and still reach across the centuries as powerfully as ever. Even in death, he leaves a final piece of verse as his epitaph. Okay, so when did he die and what did he leave his wife? His wife is here. When he died is over here. So make sure you get those. And his epitaph is what's written on his gravestone. So that's at the bottom here. Good friend, for Jesus' sake, forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man that spares these stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones. He's pretty much like, if you move my body, you're gonna be cursed. Nobody has ever moved it. Nobody will move his body. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty darn cool. All right, so you should have the first 5 answered. If you do not, make sure that you go back to this guy. This is where when he died and what he left his wife in his will. And then this is what he said. You can use my paraphrasing if you want, but it's pretty much these 2 lines here at the bottom. Okay? All right, pause the video if you need that. I'm going to exit out of there. And we're going to move on to Elizabethan theater. So you're going to do this again. You're going to click this link. And we're going to pull up Elizabethan theater. So our first few questions are, how did Marlowe, a competing playwright of Shakespeare's, die? The second question is, what was the general feeling towards plays during this period of time? What type of reputation did the theater have? So we're looking for, how did Marlowe die? And what was the reputation of the theater in general? Not just like Globe Theater specifically, like going to see a play. How was it viewed? Okay. Elizabethan theater and the name of William Shakespeare are inextricably bound together. Yet there were others writing plays at the same time as the Bard of Avon. One of the most successful was Christopher Marlowe, who many contemporaries considered Shakespeare's superior. Marlowe's career, however, was cut short at a comparatively young age when he died in a tavern fight in Deptford, the victim of a knife in the eye. Deptford, England, by the way, not Deptford, New Jersey. Didn't exist yet. Okay. Theater had an unsavory reputation. London authorities refused to allow plays within the city, so theaters opened across the Thames in Southwark, outside the authority of the city administration. The first proper theater as we know it was the theater, built at Shoreditch in 1576. Before this time, plays were performed in the courtyard of inns or sometimes in the houses of noblemen. A nobleman had to be careful about which play he allowed to be performed within his home, however. Anything that was controversial or political was likely to get him in trouble with the crown. So, how did Marlowe die is in this first paragraph. And what kind of reputation theater had? Unsavory. Unsavory. So use your own words. Don't use unsavory. Tell me what that means. Okay, so our next couple of questions are, what was the name of the most famous theater built in 1599? We haven't gotten there yet. What happened to this theater? And what would a prosperous woman wear to the theater and why? Okay, so let's learn about the most famous theater. After the theater, further open-air playhouses opened in the London area, including the Rose, 1587, and the Hope, 1613. The most famous playhouse was the Globe, 1599, built by the company in which Shakespeare had a stake. So Shakespeare wasn't involved in actually, it was already built and being used as a theater by the time he got there. But you can still go to the Globe today. However, the Globe was only in use until 1613, when a cannon fired during a performance of Henry VIII caught the roof on fire and the building burned to the ground. The site of the theater was rediscovered in the 20th century and a reconstruction built near the spot. So this is kind of iffy, actually, because the Globe was burned down in 1613 completely. In 1614, they rebuilt it. And then later in the 20th century, they built like another version. So there have been 3 versions of the Globe. Yeah. Okay, so this is the most famous playhouse, the most famous theater. What happened to the theater? And then we're going to get to what the women would wear. These theaters could hold several thousand people, most standing in the open pit before the stage, though rich nobles could watch the play from a chair set on the side of the stage itself. Theater performances were held in the afternoon because, of course, there was no artificial lighting. Women attended plays, though often the prosperous woman would wear a mask to disguise her identity. Further, no women performed in the plays. Female roles were generally performed by young boys. It was kind of considered scandalous for a woman to perform on stage. It wasn't seen as proper, so they wouldn't have allowed a woman to perform on stage. So female roles would be played by like maybe like 11-year-old boys with like higher voices. Sometimes they would be like, they already hit puberty, but they would do like a lady voice. Pretty funny, pretty interesting. All right, so you should have those 3 questions. The last section, give a pause if you need to go back. The last section is, you don't have to click on anything. You're reading the following common phrases that were created by Shakespeare and tell me what you think they mean. If you've never heard of any of these, look it up. But I picked ones that I think we all know. All's well that ends well. That's the title of the Shakespearean play. Tell me what you think that means. All that glitters is not gold. The Merchant of Venice. You may recognize this one from All Star by Smash Mouth. All that glitters is gold. Only shooting stars break them. Okay, I'll stop. But yeah, but this is different. So all that glitters is not gold. In a pickle from The Tempest. Kill with kindness. Taming of the Shrew. Too much of a good thing. As You Like It. Okay, so the things that are in parentheses are the names of the plays that they come from. What I'm asking you to define is the thing that comes before the parentheses. Okay, all right, that's all I got for you guys. Make sure you do that, and then make sure you do your 15 minutes of IXL, and you're due now, and you'll be all done. All right, I'll see you guys on Thursday.